Your thoughts are wilder. Love came Hey, welcome to stream. We're gonna begin very soon. Okay, let's start now. Fix my eyes on the things. I will warn you guys, I am slightly multitasking, doing my morning workout, doing this set review. And last time we did a set review, it took 3 hours per color. I don't know how that happened, but I had a good time doing it. It literally took 3 hours to do Endurance for Alliance War. We'll try to be a little bit more succinct, a little bit faster, but we will try to share all our thoughts on any given card without rushing to the next card. So if we need to stop at any given point, we'll just stop. Like, we'll basically be like, okay, because I just looked how many cards are at strength. There's a lot of cards in strength. As a general rule, I think the Moons of Elsweyr cards are very powerful right now. They may not have seemed that powerful because, like, during the time that they were showing these cards, if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember what happened first, but remember in the Alliance War meta, things were very dictated by, basically, it was like a Witherhand Cultist, Assassin Market, A-Bomb sort of meta with Halalu was the most dominant aggro deck as well, probably because it has good it goes wide, runs Witherhand Cultist. It was a Witherhand Cultist meta, which means many decks like Covenant were running Witherhand Cultist, which basically made Ice Storm less and less effective. We've moved into this Alfiq and Cradle Crush meta. So, like, you see Cradle Crush Giants a lot more than you see Ice Storms. So some of these cards might not have looked so good because people were coloring their expectations with the previous meta, but with the meta shift, many of the cards in Moons of Elsweyr are very playable. I remember people looked at Wax and Wane cards and were just like, what the potato is this? Like, it was funny because you look at a Wax and Wane card and you couldn't tell how good it was because you need to see the other Wax and Wane cards to know how good it was. And we really held off the idea of doing a set review because we had no idea how to review any of the cards because we didn't play with any of the cards. The cards looked really weird. And I think we made the right decision because we didn't understand these cards. So we wanted to play against it, and we wanted to play as many as we could before we reviewed anything. So let's start. Let's see, neutral endurance. What shall we start with? Let's start with multicolor because there's 2 cards. Chimera. So I've been playing a bit of Monk, playing a lot of Khajiit in those decks, and it's kind of hard for me to think. Like, my natural inclination is to gravitate towards these kind of cards. These kind of cards are fun, okay? But is this card really worth what you're paying for? So 5 Magicka for 5/6, stat-wise, she's kind of big. She's big. What? For 6 Magicka, I'm willing to play things like Zumog. Zumog, 6 cost 4/6. If I learned it, 4/6 is a tough boy. He is tough. So 5/6, she's tough. It's not easy to remove. She can't get lightning bolted, but she can get javelined, okay? She can edict. So certain matchups will be able to single target sniper faster and more consistently than other ones. If they use Sorcerer's Negation against her, it's really not that effective. This kind of Pilfer deck is very aggressive. So really what's really important, she gets the 5 damage in. But I think this is also what makes this card kind of difficult to use, is that she's a late game card in an aggressive meta, in an aggressive archetype. So when you're thinking Monk and Pilfer, you're thinking about a deck that's trying to kill people turn 7 with Swift Strike and Monk Strike combo. Monk Strike gives you +3, +0, and Drain. Swift Strike allows you to attack twice. So if you've been hitting them face turns 1 through 6, turn 7 can be lethal if you have, like, let's say a Cliff Racer on the board. That's 14 damage. That's 14 damage. So the problem is Chimera the best choice as a 5-drop in a game that ends on turn 7? Not really, because her ability, while strong, it is a strong ability. It's more late game oriented, because to see the value of every Khajiit getting +1/+1, you need to see multiple Khajiit, right? Or you need to pilfer with her, or you pilfer with her multiple times. So if you pilfered with her multiple times, twice, and you got to see 2 Khajiit maybe that were buffed, and then you got to play them. I mean, first Khajiit was buffed once, second Khajiit was buffed twice. The thing is, if this situation ever happened, this situation hasn't happened to me yet. I tried to make this situation happen, but it hasn't happened yet. And being a unique legendary, a one-of, she's not reliably found, so you can't really build your strategy around her. Her ability is in half. In a way, it's worse than Praetorian Commander. In a way, it's better. It's worse because it only buffs Khajiit, but it's better because it can be procced multiple times. And I think that's where the real power and value of Chimera would come from, is if you could pilfer with her multiple times. She would really shine with something like a Bondari Opportunist deck, but these Bondari Opportunist decks don't seem to be most effective in Monk. They seem to be better in something like Archer. And if it's Bondari Opportunist better in Archer, then you could only run Chimera with that in Halalu, but then she's a unique one-of, which means she's a 1 out of 75 chance to get, and that makes Chimera awkward to use, and I think Chimera is awkward, right? And there's another card in the set that is just so much stronger right now to me. It's the 6/5 Monastic Champion. It says 6/5 Pilfer, create a 3/3, because it kind of does the same thing, but it's even better if you think about it. And Breakthrough is relevant because Chimera gets stopped by guards. So even if they put a potato guard in front of it, like a Thieves Guild recruit, you could movement and like get in. It's possible. It's possible. But you'd have to be patient with it, because generally speaking, you're probably low on your movement towards the end. Like if you're running this kind of movement pilfer deck package, usually you've used some of your movement options, like the 3-drop and the 2-drop, between turns 1 through 4. So Chimera's slotting is weird. Like if there was something that would make this card much more playable, it's a lower Magicka cost and worse stats. Like if she was a 3-drop for like 3/3 or something, she would be probably better than Serial. She would probably be a little bit more playable. But she's competing with Monastic Champion. She's a unique legendary. It's hard to rely on her. But she has a serviceable body. So she's kind of flavorful and stylish. So if you put it in your deck, it's a fun card that you can't always rely on, but she probably could win you the game if she could stick. But the problem is we're in a meta where there's Alfiques and stuff like that. So like even if you buffed your creatures twice, you will not necessarily see 3 more turns. So like your opponent's game plan may be to end you at a turn 8, right? So Monk would need to be a little bit more focused on, and Empire couldn't run this because Empire doesn't run enough Khajiit, right? So even though Empire has the ability to run Chimera, you wouldn't want to run her because, again, tricolor, it's more difficult to find her, and you don't have enough Khajiit, and you have access to Praetorian Commanders and conscriptions. So I wouldn't ever put her in Empire list. Euraxia Thorn. I don't own this card, but I've played against it many times. Hello. Hi. Yeah, the problem is there really such thing as a mid-range Monk deck in a meta where there's Alfique? That's the thing. Yeah, maybe Chimera could fit in a mid-range Monk list, and actually there might be, but the problem is, I should just comment a little bit more on the Monk. Monk does have quite a few good decks in the set. You've got the Control package, Wax and Wane. She wouldn't fit in there unless I might be missing something. Maybe she does fit in the Wax and Wane package because maybe there's enough Khajiit in there, the Rebellion Generals, the Queen's Captains. But realistically speaking, that Wax and Wane package doesn't even break runes, and her attack being 5 means she'll break a rune to buff anything. So that's kind of bad. So the Control Wax Wane package, she is kind of anti-synergistic. They might have many Khajiit, but they don't like attacking and breaking runes. And they don't even run any Pilfer cards or any Pilfer package. They run complete Wax Wane. Let's play Rebellion General multiple times, trigger multiple times, and then wipe them out in a single turn. That's a control deck that is actually very legit. I've seen it played by quite a few players. Euraxia Thorn. Man, she's a good card. She's a good card. I don't have her, so I haven't played her, but every single time someone's actually played her, they've been able... Oh, there's only a couple times, like the times I've been able to steal... Let's read what she does. Summon, steal enemy creature or support. Last grasp your opponent steals it back. Basically, she's a cheaper, stronger Marok. If she dies, you lose the target you stole. But a number of players who've been playing this have made it very clear that it's very, very easy. Is it easy? I don't know if it's easy, but they have easily turned off her last grasp ability with like a silence. Like maybe Shadowfen Priest. Some people even ran Hush. Like, it's kind of weird to run Hush, and it seems unexpected. But basically, because of Euraxia Thorn's ability, you could, or Illusionist Mage is another one. Illusionist Mage really hurts. Because Illusionist Mage could make her steal 2 things, and turns off the first one she steals. So if she steals something, Illusionist Mage comes down. Let's look at it. Your ways are higher. Another creature disappears, then returns at the end of the turn. It's 5 Magicka cost, which might make it sound like this couldn't be played with that, but Empire can ramp because they have Hiss Mages and they have Hiss Mages. They also have Tree Minders. Right. could do a Rack and Venom Tongues if they really wanted to. Kind of unusual. I'm sure I'm not thinking of other things that... there are self-silence package things like the silence cards in this lane kind of thing. I saw someone actually run a really interesting Spellsword control deck, with basically Galen, Thaydon, Eurexia Tharn, and basically Marak. And she's game-winning, though, if you could turn off the Last Grasp. And against... Oh, the other problem is her body's so thick. She's such a thick body, right? You need a very specific answer for her. So another reason why that she's not answered easily is you just put her in the shadow lane. So you put her in the shadow lane. Okay. The traditional answer to shadow lane creatures like her is to silence them. So you silence them with Earthbone Spinners, you silence them... So you put her in shadow lane, and your opponent silences her. If you silence her, then you can't get your creature back. She loses the Last Grasp ability. So she's basically reading immunity to silence, kind of, in a way, right? Because if you silence her, you're not going to get back whatever I just stole. So you can't silence her, which means she's going to stay in the shadow lane and you can't attack her. So attacking her doesn't work. So you're going to need things like a Dawn's Wrath, a Javelin, an Edict. And the problem with Edict and Javelin is usually you're not holding on to them that long. You don't hold on to them till turn 9 in general. So you might be able to, if you're playing your Axia, you could play other cards that are good Javelin bait, like a Phalanx Exemplar or something, and then you kind of pave the way for your Axia Tharn to be that massive board swing. So maybe you play Phalanx Exemplar, they blow it up. They play something, then they play Lava Atronach with a Mighty Conjuring. Like, if they play a Mighty Conjuring and you're able to survive to their Eurexia Tharn, what does Battle Mage do? They literally just had 2 threats upper on the board. They can't Lightning Bolt, or they Lightning Bolt, Firebolt, generally, because usually Battle Mages use the Firebolt as soon as they can. And Lightning Bolt is possible, but it's very unlikely for them to have both of them in hand. I don't really see people stealing supports with her in general. But that flexibility is cool, because maybe there's going to be more supports to steal in the future. I mean, stealing someone's Divine Fervor could be cool. But in general, you're looking to steal creatures. It's also worth noting she's uprisable, so if you have her and Marak, and Uprisings in a deck, I think that's something I would love to try out. I find Uprising to be playable in Scout currently, so maybe Uprising's playable in Empire. I think you would need to make it really work for an Uprising deck. You want ramp, I think, like his mages. So, and opposite of Chimera, so something we were talking about Chimera is that she's in a 75 card deck. It's really bad because Chimera is something you want to consistently pull. You win. Chimera is a card that if you're in a 75 card deck, it actually makes Chimera worse because she becomes so inconsistent that you can't rely on her. But Eurexia Tharn's actually the very opposite. She's actually better in a 75 card list because she's so expensive. She's a late game card, 9-drop. Many games don't even go there right now. So she's kind of a brick. So you kind of actually benefit by having her in a 75 card list because you actually you're increasing the chance that you get her on curve and decreasing the chance that you have her too early. Because getting her too early can be, it's like unnecessary. And that's kind of how I view card games, is like when you are looking at your hand, let's say you have Eurexia Tharn. What if that was Edict of Azura? What if that was a Debilitate? It could be a whole difference in the game. right? So it does, even a single card different in your hand can make a complete difference in a game state. So having your Euraxia Tharn in hand too often, like in a Spellsword deck, in a meta that ends by turn 8, is a bad thing, because that could have been a game-changing card. It's interesting to note Redoran can also run her as well. I'm not very good at Redoran, so I can't really speak to the things that Redoran would be doing with her, but they don't. So Redoran won't have access to the ramp, but Redoran, she's kind of heavy she's kind of expensive for a more aggressive line. Redoran Control does exist, so it's possible to run her in Redoran Control. What is blue, purple, yellow? For some reason, I'm completely blanking. What is blue, purple, yellow? Is blue? What the heck is blue, purple, yellow? Green, purple, yellow is Empire. Blue, purple. Tribunal. She can be run in Tribunal. That's scary. That's pretty scary. So like, she's a good. So she's flexible. So unlike Chimera has flexibility issues. Seems to be only good in Monk because you put her in a Halalu deck that doesn't have Khajiit. It's like, come on, just put a Divine Fervor or something. Euraxia Tharn, on the other hand, her color combination makes her very flexible. You're looking at Redoran, you're looking at Tribunal, which has a very strong control suite already, and already has a history of having the ability to get to these kind of late game cards kind of nicely. Empire is interesting because Empire has both those very aggressive decks that are very effective that we saw in Master Series Final by Fuldir, and you also can go all the way to Conscriptions, or you can probably go to Real Control, but sometimes if right now it feels like I think Monk Control might be better than Empire Control at the moment. It's kind of like, so I would think that Empire's Conscription and Empire's aggressive decks are stronger than their control capabilities when compared to something like Tribunal. But that's kind of speculation, right? Because overall I think Euraxia Tharn is quite good because of her playability, and she's a card that you want to, when you play her, you want to have a follow-up plan on how to stop and turn off the last grasp. And when you turn off the last grasp, the game's pretty much over. It's worth noting when you play Euraxia Tharn or Marak on Tazcat, that's the most recent experience I had being the Tazcat player, is Tazcat gets charged. So you could steal Tazcat and immediately attack with them, and that goes for all charging creatures. So if you're playing her, think about stealing charging creatures. Let's see, you could steal her with Abner Tharn. Yeah, that's correct, right? That's good. A good interaction I forgot to talk about. 2 mana. Well, that's also worth noting. Yeah, you just talked about transform. I guess, I don't know if there's that card that you can transform a card into a card that costs even more than it. That's another way, I think that's a blue card. I think that's another way Tribunal can turn off Euraxia Tharn's ability and get more benefit from it. Interesting. Fear Totem with Euraxia Tharn. That's an interesting concept. I'm glad you guys are interacting and giving me these ideas. I had no idea. That sounds like a very excellent plan. Fear Totem drops it by how much? I don't know. 3. That is kind of scary. That is interesting. This Fear Totem Euraxia Tharn Marak deck. So you just Euraxia Tharn it with Fear Totem. Boom. It's a 6 cost. Steal it again. Fear Totem. Boom. Why don't you just run Mushroom Tower while you're at it so you can steal 2 things? You can even sacrifice the creature you stole. Wait, does that make any sense? You play your Exit Tharn with a Mushroom Tower, steal, you Fear Totem, so you get it back. You probably can't play the same turn. No, that's dumb, because then what are you Fear Toteming the second Fear Totem on what? Don't know. But I think these are interesting ideas. Codwell, the Soul Shriven. No, transforming does not trigger Last Grasp. Transforming just completely changes the card. It's not a Last Grasp thing. So I come from playing Gwent, right? And Codwell is interesting because Codwell is also a betrayer in that game too. So I don't know what's the name about Codwell that makes people, oh, Codwell sound, and he even looks like him. Like he even has the same like face and beard in Gwent, but he's a little bit heavy set and he has a poodle in his hand. If you Google Gwent and Codwell, Count Codwell, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's actually a pretty charming card. Let's get another interesting song. Hopefully we don't get muted. We're gonna get ripped in pieces. Okay, it should be background. It should be fine. Codwell the Soul Shriven. This card's gonna really require thinking because I've never seen anyone actually play this card. Ever. Except on like a highlight. Someone's highlight, but not in a game versus me. Codwell the Soul Shriven. Immune to Shackle. When a rune is destroyed, Codwell the Soul Shriven gets +1/+0. I mean, there is one good reason to rerun this already, and I haven't thought about it yet, but you know Discerning Thief? She loves cards like this. She throws them away. So like, Discerning Thief is an excellent card. She says, pilfer, draw a card, discard a card. When you run dual cards like this, it basically turns the ability into draw a card. Because like, think about it. You have Discerning Thief, you have Codwell drawn, and you're like, excellent, you're garbage for Corner Club, you're garbage for Discerning Thief. Discerning Thief hits, you throw away the Codwell. And then you draw another card. Then Discerning Thief hits, then you throw away the second Codwell. So maybe being a neutral card, this card can follow Discerning Thief around, because Discerning Thief loves things that generate trash. She loves Manic Jack. She loves Manic Jack because he's a Manic Jack and a Manic Mutation. Can throw away either in both. She loves cards like Crown Quartermaster because he generates a dagger. And actually, she probably loves the new card monthly that generates two weapons, which we've been seeing more and more of, and quite nice. That +3 for 2 Magicka, it pretty much reads, I'm better than a Cliff Racer. The +3/+0 2 Sword card with the new, I don't even know what the card's called yet. I don't remember. That card generates trash. So Discerning Thief would probably love that card as well. And in that case, it's useful trash. In this case, this is like completely trash. This is just getting more trash to throw. So, since Hive Defender is a 4-drop for 3/6, 4-drop for 3/5, it's playable. It's playable. Codwell the Betrayer attacking you. Does this have... I mean, you're an aggressive deck. Would you want to break a rune to draw a card when you're supposed to attack them and kill them? Can anyone think of anything why you would want to attack yourself? You could say he could attack your rune so he could buff up this one. But wouldn't you just attack them to buff this one? And immune to shackle is kind of weird, because is someone really going to shackle a 0/1? Is someone really going to use the Shrieking Harpy? I mean, assuming that their runes are even being destroyed, you probably have something that's stronger and bigger to destroy it, which basically makes Codwell the Soul Shriven unplayable on curve in an aggressive deck. But you have to mulligan. You don't keep this as a turn 1 play. Something tells me though that Codwell the Soul Shriven is a good card to just sacrifice. I don't know, I don't know what the lore is, but maybe in one of those Altar of Despair decks, or one of those Telvanni kind of like, I don't know, those decks that they sacrifice cards, like what's that? Flaming Conflagration thingy? Sacrifice deal 5 to random creature. Maybe there's a benefit to having 2 bodies off of 1 card. But these are all taking advantage of the fact that it's a dual card. Close call. Oh, good. Yeah. Ferd, good call. I totally forgot about it. Euraxia Tharn. Okay, close call is unlikely, but Night to Remember is like perfect. At that stage, hey, it's funny though, because at that stage you're actually doing a Maroc. It's basically a Maroc. No, it's good. Just kidding. It's better than Maroc, because you stole 2 things. You steal on summon, you use Night to Remember, and then you can steal again, and you take off the previous last scrap, and you're now... So you protect the first steal, basically. That's a good call. I don't think I like Close Call that much, because Close Call 0's cost. You bring her back, and while that turns off the steal, and you can do another one, it probably could work, but I think Night to Remember is more effective. That's interesting. Do you get Pilfer when you attack yourself? I do not know. I think someone needs to try that out, because this is the first card that can attack yourself, right? Like, so maybe nobody knows. But at that case, shouldn't you attack them? Why would you Ringleader? Because Ringleader, and I know it's for theory crafting purposes, but wouldn't you want to play Ringleader on a lane where you have more than one thing attacking? At which point, all the other guys attacking are attacking the face. Why is he attacking the wrong direction? So my best use case I could think of is throwing him away for Discerning Thief. Let's go to the next card. There might be some combo that we just haven't thought of. It's hidden, you know? One second, be right back.
No, I'll show you what it is, because it's going to be live there on that mic. And then I would be playing guitar right here.
It sounds like a rock dropping.
So will I take 4.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and
All right, we're back. Wax Wayne. So it turns out Wax and Wayne decks can be really good. I think we need to recognize Wax and Wayne cards I think overall they're actually quite strong. So let's say you use Lunar Sway. You get a 3/3 Cathay Rat. Okay, sure, 2 cost. My favorite way to get Cathay Rat at is basically Pilfer with a Monastic Champion. So basically, that's the same card that the Monastic Champion gets when he Pilfers. And then the Doggy Rat 4/4 guard, 3 cost. Okay. This card is best played in conjunction with the Lunar thingy. Moongate. Moongate's what it's called. So Moongate says activate, get Wax and Wane effects this turn. I think this is a really good card, and it makes Wax and Wane cards go from maybe to like very scary. So this card played, so every single card with Wax and Wane needs to be compared with a Moongate and without a Moongate, basically. So without a Moongate, it basically reads, this is just like a Scout's Report. It's basically say, draw a card, but the difference is you know exactly what you're going to draw. So, and it doesn't thin the deck. Scout's Report has the added effect of being able to thin your deck 2 cards, which is important. So Scout's Report's better than Lunar Sway when it comes to thinning your deck and populating the discard pile. But this card, you know exactly what you're drawing. And let's say Wax is an odd turn. So if you played this on turn 1, you unfortunately couldn't play Cathay Rat on turn 2. Because you would get a Doggy Rat. So that's a little bit awkward. So maybe there's a world you wish they were switched around. But let's say you have the Ring, turn 1 Lunar Sway. Then you have 3 Magicka on turn 2. Then so this is better with the Ring, because you could actually play the Doggy Rat on turn 2. And that probably could stop an aggressive game plan pretty hard. If you played a 4/4 guard on turn 2. Right in front, that's like, that's probably the maximum value you get out of it without the Moongate, is with Ring, turn 1, Lunar Sway, turn 2, Doggy Rat. Unfortunately, if you don't have the Ring and you use Lunar Sway turn 1, you can't play either of them. So in this case, this card is probably a card you need a mulligan out of your hand, and you try to draw it later. And that makes sense too, because Lunar Sway is an excellent card later when you've run out of cards and you're just looking for cards. And when you wait for the Moongate to set up, Lunar Sway becomes 1 cost card, draw 2 cards that you know what they are. And on turn 6, with a Moongate, you can play all 3 cards. So on turn 6, you could Lunar Sway, play Cathay Rat, and Doggy Rat. Is that a very good turn 6? Well, all turn 6s need to be compared with an Alfiq Conjurer. Alfiq Conjurer is giving you, worst case scenario, 3/4 guard, 5/3 breakthrough. Best case scenario, 3/4 guard, 7/5 ward. So this is undoubtedly worse turn 6 than both those cases. But even though it's worse than that, because it's even conditional, it's even more conditional because you need the Moongate. So his power level is not on Alfiq Conjurer's level, but at least it's in the conversation. Like, if your turn 6 look like that, and you had developed a board, maybe you can deal with it. And it's definitely going to help a little bit. You'll be able to slow the aggression a little bit. So you're not going to be able to outrace the Alfiq Conjurer with the Lunar Sway. You're not even going to be able to stop them pound for pound, but it definitely help in the defense. Like, it's definitely going to help, especially if you already established a board, and maybe they'll be able to get through these two guys easily. Like the 7/5 is going to smash through your 4/4 guard easy easy, right? But let's say they break some runes. If you have other defensive options, javelins, I'm thinking Monk. Kind of thinking Monk, Wax Wayne, because Monk Wax Wayne's is looking like the best Wax and Wayne deck. So I'm trying to see, is this a good card in that deck? Well, you might have Sank Pets, Piercing Javelins to help, and they have healing too. So if you do get a little bit behind on that turn 6, you're going to get plenty of cards anyway from the rune breaks. And then now you're on damage control level, and then once you've contained the Alfiq situation, you can start healing yourself up. This doesn't say this card, unfortunately, as a Wax and Wayne card, does not synergize with Rebellion General. Even if you get Ring on turn 1, still get cover. Oh, did I just mess up? Oh, I had it backwards. Good call. I had it backwards. Turn 1, Cathay, good call. Turn 1, Lunar Sway. You actually get the 2 cost, so you can play the Cathay Rod immediately. So I'm confused. So if you play it on turn 1, you get the Wax. You play it on turn 2, you get the Wayne. Okay, good. And then if you play Lunar Sway on turn 1, you do get a 3/3/2 card immediately. If you play Lunar Sway on turn 2, then you get Dagirat, which is weird, because even if you have the ring, now you... Oh, so the best situation is you get it on curve turn 1, and then you play the 2/2 ring or no ring. Wayne, playing this on turn 2 with no ring or a ring will still get you this, and you can't actually play it with the ring or without the ring, because you've access to 3 Magicka, and playing Lunar Sway means you now have 2 Magicka, and the Dagirat's 3. So Lunar Sway also is a little... The problem is it doesn't actually benefit from Rebellion General. None of the cards in it do, and none of the... Nothing about this card likes Rebellion General, and that makes it probably not that necessary. So if you're building a Monk control deck, you might be tempted to put this in the deck, but I don't think this is an auto include at all. It's a very pretty card, by the way. Like, this is poster worthy. The dragon, the pink, the blues, the towers. This is cool. So Moongate's auto include in any deck that is running enough Wax and Wayne cards. Monk's the strongest. Monk's the strongest because they have the strongest Wax and Wayne cards. They have Rebellion General, and then they have Queen's Captain. And if we were to pick one color that is the strongest Wax and Wayne color, it'd be green, because Rebellion General is the best. So we've seen Rebellion General used effectively in Assassin. We've seen it used effectively in non-Monk colors. Because basically, Queen's Captain is a control card, right? So it screams control. So in that game plan, you basically put out the willpower small dude gives you lots of guards, or heals you, I believe. And there's two willpower ones. The willpower ones are very good with Rebellion General because on their own they're very lackluster, but when they get triggered multiple times, it's amazing. And Moongate. So the thing about Rebellion General is he allows you he's like an Ulfric's Uprising for Wax and Wayne cards. Basically, if the turn's a Wax turn or a Wayne turn, reactivate everyone's Wax or Wayne effect. By using Moongate, Rebellion General will activate both the Wax and Wayne of all the creatures on the board. So like the green Wax and Wayne guy, if you played it as a 2/2 with draw, and then you had a Moongate on the board, and then you activate it with Rebellion General, it would not only draw you a card, but it would also get +1/+1 and drain. So with every single added creature with Wax and Wayne on the board, Moongate, Rebellion General become more and more powerful because they're triggering more and more Wax and Waynes, basically. So I think the most powerful combo with Moongate is Rebellion General because it lets Rebellion General reactivate both the Wax and the Wane. Otherwise, Rebellion General only activates Wax or Wane, right? And that's really scary. Why is that so good with Queen's Captain? Well, Moongate's also really good with just Queen's Captain. Let's say you don't even have a Rebellion General, but you have Queen's Captain. Queen's Captain reads, draw 2 cards. I don't remember which one's Wax and Wane. We'll look at it later, but draw 2 cards or destroy a creature. When you get both of those, it's the control player's dream. It's like a Manticora, but cheaper. Not even lane specific. So you could shoot something in the field lane and develop shadow, shoot something in the shadow, develop field. And then drawing 2 cards insane. And then what happens when you have Rebellion General on the board? With the Moongate. Well, and the Queen's Captain. So you have Queen Captain's on the board. You already killed a creature, presumably. And drew 2 cards, maybe. You still have 1 more Moongate charge. You drop a Rebellion General. Not only do you activate all the other guys, but you're activating the Queen's Captain. And activating the Queen's Captain, destroy a creature and draw 2 cards pretty much will destroy your average game plan. The only consideration with this is it's a little bit slow in an Alfiq meta, Battle Mage meta. So like Queen's Captain might be a little slow, but I know it can get off on Battle Mage because Monk has good removal tools and decent drain to survive. But if you can get if Monk can get 2 the Queen's Captain, Wax and Wane, and Rebellion General, it's pretty much over for most decks, I think. It's far more effective in a Monk, for another reason, because Monk is a 50 card deck, meaning it's going to be easier to find your 3 of Rebellion General, 3 of Queen's Captains, and 3 of Moongate, very important. And there are not enough Wax and Wane cards in the game to actually be tricolor. So, like, if you have I don't think a Moongate based deck with that triad would effectively sit in Empire because you're now dispersing your Wax and Wanes. There's not enough Wax and Wane cards in those colors to populate the deck. And unless, I'm not sure if there's a card that fetches supports, but if there was, maybe that might be okay. It might be okay. And it could, but it maybe you're a tricolor Empire deck and you're using the Wax Wane combo as a finisher and you're relying on other stuff to sort of shore up the early game, maybe using Barrow Stalkers, maybe things like that. But I can't see that as superior to the Monk version. There is a card that fetches supports. Any idea what that is? Draw a support. That's not helpful. A random support that's too slow. Your friend, you planet swarm. If you find out what it is, you can just let us know, and that would be cool. Crocodile Brute. This is interesting because a lot of people thought this card was good, at least on Reddit and Twitter, on the reveals, and they weren't so sure about the other cards, but people were pretty sure this card was good. It has seen less play. It still saw a lot more play during the early part. The earlier part of Moons. I mean, it's reasonable. This card's reasonable. It's reasonable. So, like, let's say 2 costs for 2/2 and Prophecy. It's reasonable if you don't get it as a Prophecy. So my rule on Prophecies is I only play Prophecies that I'm happy to play from hand. So think Cloud Rest Illusionist. Excellent played from hand. Lightning Bolt, Piercing Javelin. These cards, they have that ooh wow factor. They could turn the game when they're Prophecies, but when you play them from hand, you don't feel bad about it. Sometimes you wish, sometimes you're wishing to yourself, I wish I had a Lightning Bolt right now because it could answer the Corner Club. So I use that kind of bar on Prophecies in general. It's like, I don't want to play Prophecies in my deck that I do not feel good playing from my hand. The Consume package is meta simply because of Alfiq. So theoretically, if Alfiq ate this card first, drawing cards, that's not bad. That's good upside, right? We all like Alfiq. We like our Alfiqs, or we play Alfiq, even when it consumes a random creature. It still feels nice. So if you could draw a card off that, that'd be cool. It'd be better though if you set up your grave with a Reflective Automaton or a Temple Conjure, so you can get the Stormy Turnock immediately. There are quite a few aggressive decks, consume decks, that have a few consumers, and I've seen some cool consuming combos. It just seems a little bit more difficult to pilot some of these, like consume and Wax and Wane require, to me, they seem to require some planning, a little bit more planning than just slamming down like a old Velothi Assassin. Just which lane do I put it? Crocodile Brute, there's a little bit more planning involved in the deck building to get full value out of it. So when this card gets minimum value, you're just a 2-drop for 2/2 played from hand. When it gets maximum value, it came off for free from a Prophecy, and you consumed and drew a card. The maximum value on this card's pretty crazy if it happens. The minimum value is bearable. So now it becomes a question of, the card's good enough. It becomes a question of what decks would this card like to call home, and how does this card compare to other 2-drops like Wardcrafter, right? So this card needs to be compared against these staple cards. And I think there is a deck that is milling itself, the card that says consume the top 3 cards from the top of your deck or whatever. That card, for example, has an interesting deck that needs to be fleshed out. I don't think people really fully understand how good that card deck is, but it does work pretty well with that kind of deck, for example, because that card can be consumed from the top of your deck. Right? So it doesn't need to even be consumed from the grave. Another thing about makes people probably uncomfortable with cards like Crocodile Brute is there's a fair bit of RNG involved. I mean, first of all, Prophecy part's RNG. Second of all, it's kind of like card draw that you can't rely on. Like Corner Club Gambler is RNG, but at least you know, like, it's like, hey, I play it, I discard. If he can't answer it, I draw. If he answers it, I'm sad. Crocodile Brute is like, it's possible if you built your deck with this as a principal card draw card in mind, that you don't see it in the grave when you need it. Like, it could be the bottom 3 cards in your deck. So that could make it a little bit of awkward a little bit, and I think that's one of the reasons why people are scared of it, is because can you rely on this card draw? And as a card draw card, if it's not reliable, do I need to put even more card draw cards in it, such as Mudcrab Merchants, Wilds Incarnates, and at what point am I putting too much card draw in the deck that I'm no longer optimized for, say, aggression? Right? Every card that says draw a card is going to be weaker in some aspect. think Wild Incarnate. It's a 7-cost card. It's 5/6 guard, draw 2 cards, right? Conditional. Well, that's blatantly worse than a Mighty Conjuring 8/8 Ward, don't draw your cards. So any card that has draw a card as an effect is typically going to have a lower, it's going to have lower stat line or more expensive cost. So our final verdict is it's playable. It needs to be, it needs the proper home. And I'm not a master of that deck, so I can't actually tell you how to operate that. Prophecy trade and draw a card. Hello, hello. Yeah, so I don't know what colors that is. Like, Consume has good enough cards that are Consume. I would imagine it's red. I think it's red because red seems to have the more aggressive consuming based cards. Ill-Fated Scholar. 3/2, 3-drop. When Ill-Fated Scholar is consumed, summon a 3/2 Insidious Spirit. Is there anything to that other than stats? Just stats. So, like, again, I actually think this Ill-Fated Scholar and Crocodile Brute is most effective with the card that it's a purple card, I think. It's a card, when played, consumes cards at the top of your deck. And that's kind of RNG based because, like, 3-drop for 3/2 is kind of bad. So, but if you got a 3-drop, if you got a 3/2 for free and you drew a card, I'd say for free because, like, let's just look at what that card is because I know that Ruin Shambler. Discard the top 3 cards of your deck, then consume all creatures that entered your discard pile this turn. Ruin Shambler gets +1/+1 for each creature consumed. Like, that card, this card played with 3 Ill-Fated Scholars at the top would probably win you the game immediately. Right? Like, so that's why we're talking about RNG, right? If those are 3 Crocodile Brutes, you just drew 3 cards. So if you just consumed 3 Ill-Fated Scholars, you literally just generated 3 3/2s. And you just became a 4/4. So that is a 4 Magicka for 4/4 and 3 3/2s. 9. That's 13 damage on the board. So, like, there is high rolling involved in Ill-Fated Scholar and Crocodile Brute. Because the whole idea of playing Ill-Fated Scholar on curve, letting it die, consuming it later, it's very romantic, but it seems kind of slow. So this kind of card is supposed to be that Shambler card. And whether or not this card gets consumed on the top, I think there's another card too that says you every time you pilfer, consume the cards on the top. These are the cards. So it might not even be the red package. So we're not sure. But when you're playing a 3-cost card, you want Young Mammoth 4/4 stats. Even Ondai Clan Sorcerer's a 4/3. So this thing isn't good on curve at all. You're basically you're investing in a potential future where you consume it and you generate the card, which is very likely if you play enough consume cards, right? So consume decks have 2 types of cards. You're playing the cards that consume, kind of the eaters, and then the eat-in, the cards that get consumed, right? So if you drew only cards that were eaters, or you drew only cards that could get eaten, you also have a problem. So you need to in the deck building process, you need to balance it out where you need to have enough eaters and enough eat-ins. Maybe a Corner Club Gambler kind of card would be nice with this. Like a Corner Club Gambler, discard her on play. Next turn, consume her. That's huge tempo. You're trying not to play her. Maybe you use Discerning Thief to pilfer, throw her away. I've been thinking of ways to get her in the grave faster so you can get the consume, because you are trying to eat her as fast as possible. You're not trying to play her and then eat her. And as you speak, since we're on it, we might finish on purple and then go for our run, and then we may continue tomorrow, or we might continue after a run. Thanks for hanging out with us. So we have to be honest about our consume experience. We've played against consume way more than we've played consume. So as we're doing the set review, we're not fully sure what are the best consume cards, but we have enough respect for the archetype. Well, we do know Afik's the best consume card. Let's be real. Afik's the best. After Afik, these other consume kind of archetypes, they're less common to see. So we're also taking this opportunity to review for ourselves what are the options consume has. One drop Imbued Argonian, 1/3 guard. When Imbued Argonian is consumed, give the consuming creature +1/+1 guard. Okay, first comparison. Deepwood Trapper. It's worse than Deepwood Trapper on the surface. Because Deepwood Trapper, same stats. Whatever gets damaged by Deepwood Trapper gets shackled. Deepwood Trapper, tier 1 card. Crazy. What makes Deepwood Trapper even crazier in these days is you can bring it back with Apprentice Necromancer. Apprentice Necromancer, last month's monthly card. 3 cost, spell sword colors, which means you could only do that in Empire. And this is exactly what Guldir won the Master Series with, is you use Apprentice Necromancer to bring back your Deepwood Trapper. Very scary. Or your Markman, but Deepwood Trapper is even better than Markman in a defensive situation, because that Shekel is scary. It's crazy. It's good in the aggro mirror especially. It's not so good against the control decks, but it still can be meaningful in the control decks matchup because it can freeze the defender and allow your other attackers to get in. Right? So Imbued Argonian off the bat has tough competition it's competing with. So I think when played, it's immediately worse than Deepwood. But when it's consumed, giving the consuming creature +1/+1 and guard, that can be interesting. Let's think about what we talked about. I think we need it just like the moon, the deck involving Wax and Wane needs to be talked in conjunction with Rebellion General and the Lunar, the Moongate. Consume cards need to be talked in conjunction with Ruin Shambler. Because it's possible that Ruin Shambler, let's look at it again a little bit more carefully. Summon, discard the top 3 cards of your deck, then consume all creatures that entered your discard pile this turn. Ruin Shambler gains +1/+1 for each creature consumed. Theoretically, he can consume way more than 3 cards if you're able to discard more stuff. If you were somehow able to... I don't know what happens if you play 2 Ruin Shamblers in one turn, because theoretically only one of them can consume stuff. So that'd probably be a problem. You'd probably get one really big Ruin Shambler and the other one becomes a 1/1 because he has nothing to eat. Very hungry. But if he gets this off the top, he's getting guard and +1/+1, right? So it's sometimes hard to talk about these cards without talking about other cards. Another card is this card, right? Euraxian Berserker. Consume a creature, gain +2/+0. So then if this guy consumed that guy, he becomes 5 guard for 3. Not bad. one of the things about consume is it only happens once, right? So if imbued Argonian's eaten once, you can't eat him again. So you do have to be selective in what you're consuming, but generally the strategy is whenever you have these kind of cards in your deck that say when I get eaten buff your creature, you're looking for the most stats on board, because these consume decks are usually aggressive decks. They're usually, like, I can't see them as control decks. They're not really control decks, because things like Shambler, for example, would be a fail if it discarded actions. So like, discard the top 3 cards of your deck, and you've discarded 3 actions: Lightning Bolt, Firebolt, Execute. Like, you ran in Tribunal. He's a 1/1. Nothing happened. It's kind of a problem. Interesting. If you do trades, if you trade creatures in before you play Ruin Shambler, it will actually buff itself off. So if other creatures enter the grave, such as Argonian, imbued Argonian, you trade them in, commit suicide, and then you use that, it would also get an additional +1/+1 buff. It'd get +2/+2 for imbued Argonian, because it get +1/+1 from imbued Argonian's ability, and it gets +1/+1 because it's an additional creature that entered the discard pile. So this archetype is more aggressive. It needs some setup, and when you're buffing your creatures with consume, they only happen once. So you might need to be careful a little bit, right? So if you buffed the wrong card and you're in the wrong lane, like a field lane, and Territorial Viper's a thing, you're gonna lose a lot of your setup. Arise. Prophecy, summon a 1/1 Risen Dead with guard in each lane. I don't know if the skeleton archetype has enough skeleton cards, or does this have a worthy place in it? Right off the bat, if this is played without any kind of skeleton synergy, I would say it's not very good. When I think skeletons right now, I think the best skeleton deck is Sorcerer, because you have access to Bone Colossus. I think there are blue skeletons. I would have to double check. Let's see. I'm pretty sure skeleton, lots of purple. Yeah, skeleton's best in blue, because you need Bess. You want her, basically, and you do want Watery Skeleton. And there's literally only one. So skeleton's only sorcerer, because this is crazy. What the heck? Blast bones. So this without skeleton synergies, let's pretend it triggers as a prophecy. Let's talk about the upside. You get it for free as a prophecy. 1/1 Risen Dead with guard on each lane. That's cool. That's the best case scenario, right? But if you're a skeleton deck, I kind of think of skeleton as a mid-range deck, because they're waiting for Bone Colossus or Bone Daddy, right? Bone Colossus is a 7-drop card. If this is cracked as a prophecy, it means your opponent is aggressive and they're breaking runes. So it could stall them out. So it could be a huge tempo swing for free, right? And it may protect other skeletons on the board. So not too bad, because as a mid-range deck, you do need to find ways to survive the aggro, right? But it could be a pretty bad prophecy if your opponent is a normal aggressive player, and they're not even splitting lanes in the early stage, and they're breaking runes with control in the field lane. I mean, if you're sorcerer, right, do they really have a reason to hide in shadow? So it might be that only half of Arise is relevant because you only get a guard in one lane that's immediately relevant. But it could be seen as good because having 2 guards, even though only 1 guard is... Let's say they have control of the field lane. They have a Mournhold Trader. They might even put the Corner Club Gambler field lane because they're not scared of Territorial Viper, right? The Arise off the Prophecy only presents a 1/1 guard in the lane that they're attacking, but the 1/1 guard in the shadow lane probably forces all their future plays to go in the field lane and kind of locks off or disincentivizes them to go to the shadow because you have they have an additional sort of roadblock. As a 2-cost card, you would never, ever, ever want to play this over like a Wardcrafter, even in a skeleton deck. I don't see how you would... Because the cards that buff other skeletons are a little bit expensive. So when you play this on curve, that's a 2-drop. They're not going to be buffed. They're going to be 1/1 guards. And since you're a mid-range deck, it is only really servicing a defensive purpose. I don't think you can look at this and say my 1/1, my 2 1/1s are going to be a meaningful threat to pressure the opponent. So I don't think this is a card that skeleton decks would want to run. Yeah. Bone Armor. Probably the newest combo piece that I've seen. If you're not aware, this card's a great card. CVH opened my eyes to this deck by killing me with this. The wielder consumes a creature and gains its health. Okay. This card was made for... So this is actually a scout combo deck, which I haven't played, but I probably should give it a try. It was made for Portcullis because let's say you use Corner Club Gambler, discard Portcullis, or you use Merchant's Camel, you discard Portcullis. You've got this guy in the grave, 0/9. Cool. Now you go to Bone Armor. Summon, the wielder consumes a creature and gains its health. So let's say you use the Merchant's Camel, you threw it away. You use Bone Armor on the Merchant's Camel, it goes from a 1/4 to a 1/13, plus 9 defense, right? And then there is the Ring of Imaginary Might. Ring of Imaginary Might. +0, +2. The wielder's power becomes equal to its health. So if you have a 1/13 on the board, and then you add 2 more defense to it, it's a 1/15, and then you use Ring of Imaginary Might, it becomes the attack becomes the toughness also becomes the attack, so it becomes a 15/15 Merchant's Camel. When you combine that with a double strike, that's 30 damage. Another thing is the Snow Tiger. Attack twice. 2. Did we mill Sabery Cat? Snowy Saber Cat is another good card with that, right? Is like, imagine you have Snowy Saber Cat. You use the Bone Armor on a Portcullis. It becomes a 16 defense creature. You use the Imaginary Might, it becomes an 18 toughness creature, and then thereby an 18 attack creature that can attack twice. This combo is actually fast enough to take out Alfiq. It can actually be pulled off. Being a scout deck, it could ramp into this too. Like, you could ramp into this combo quickly and basically say, hit me all. And actually this deck can be seen as kind of dangerous because This deck can also, I think there's healing involved. The Portcullis thing, they have Portcullis as a prophecy as well. If they find Portcullis as a prophecy, you might actually lose off that because you just help them get a really big toughness creature on the board immediately. You also, there are combo decks that are looking for pieces like Bone Armor. So if you break enough runes, you're basically drawing them cards. So I think it's cool. It's cool because within purple, we can see we've only looked at 3 cards, and you're seeing this is a consume kind of aggressive kind of deck. You look at this, and this is, while this card may not be the best option, there is a new, there's not a new, but there's new life in the Sorcerer Skeleton deck, which is very playable. It's also worth noting, a Sorcerer Skeleton deck can run Alfix, making it basically a playable deck. But it's probably best for people who have 3 Bone Colossus in their collection, because if you have 3 Bone Colossus in your collection, that's going to be the main win con, I think, in the Skeleton deck. And then here we're seeing a combo Scout deck that is making use of Double Strike, making use of Ring of Illusory Might, and it might actually be able to extrapolate over into non-Scout decks because Bone Armor is purple, Portcullis is neutral. Ring of Illusory Might is also Imaginary Might is also purple. So basically, the combo is really purple centric. I think the reason why Scout as a green deck is seeing the most effectiveness is because ramping allows you to get there faster. Card draw in green is best over other stuff, and green has been good at finding pieces, and nothing else is irrelevant. You really don't care if you're at 2 health or 3 health, as long as you get your combo off and your pieces off, and you set it up properly, you can close people out. And actually, every single card in that deck becomes a threat. It's worth noting, you don't need a Portcullis to kill them. You don't need a Sabery Tooth Cat. You can kill them with a Merchant's Camel. So, since you can kill them with a Merchant's Camel, every single thing they're playing, because it's an item sort of combo-based deck that is about buffing a high toughness creature from a creature that's already in the grave, as long as the creature's in the grave and they have a warm body, any Merchant's Camel is going to do. If a Merchant's Camel's hiding in the Shadow Lane, that thing represents lethal. It's actually, if they have enough Magicka, it represents lethal even if you're at full health. And then if you remove it, they're not really disappointed because they're just looking for the next. They can just, it's like, cool, what do you, Lightning Bolt a 1/4? Because they can do it all in one turn, right? So if they can do it all in one turn, then they have the advantage of basically saying, I put the card here, it's representing a threat. You're going to do anything about it? Oh, you're not going to do anything about it? I'm going to buff it up. Oh, you did something about it? I don't care because I didn't buff it up. I still have my resources. That matchup also might favor, I'm not sure, I'm not playing this deck, so I don't know if it's favored against aggro. I don't know if it's favored against control, but I've been on both sides. I've been on the aggro and I've been on the control and I've been on the combo against it, and it's reasonable. Its matchup is good enough in all 3 cases. I'm gonna be right back, get some water. All right, thanks for waiting. So if Lunar Sway has the best artwork in the set, or I can say Lunar Sway has the prettiest artwork. Let's put, this is something that you could put on a wallpaper. This is something you could put on a desktop background. Dromathra Reaper might be over the top and the swaggiest cat in the set. I think he has the most swag. Or she. She's probably, she can't, she's a she has boobs. Okay. Dramathra Reaper, I call her Batman Cat because she looks like if a Khajiit raided Batman's wardrobe. This is what you come out with. She looks like she's got like high-tech runes going on, like zzz, like just like buzzing with that kind of like electricity. It's very over the top, but it's also very cool with the scimitar going on. I don't know if I approve of her technique. So the artist drawing this may not know how to use weapons because I don't think you're supposed to ever hit someone like that. But let's pretend she didn't. Maybe you can't. Maybe this is not an upswing or the downswing. Maybe this is a. She's already hit. She's already. Okay, I think the artist is trying to show her going to hit, but based off of like, if your arm was angled like in this weird way, it is not a very. That's not maximizing penetration. The artist is probably trying to show the face, show the weapon, show the breastplate. Don't attack people like this. You're gonna hurt your own self. I'm just gonna pretend that she swung so hard that her sword bounced off someone's armor, and it's just ricocheting, and that's why it looks awkward. Okay. I've been playing this card in my most recent deck. I've been playing in this deck right here, my conscription card, because we were able to pull 3 of them from card packs, which is cool. It's cool to have a completed set. I think she is a lot of fun to play. Like, because between the card art and the VFX and the audio, it sounds really weird. Those are all reasons that I'm just like putting her in decks because I just like the card and she's good enough. So what are you getting for a 2-drop? You're getting a 3-2 worst case scenario, 3-3 best case scenario. Sorry, middling case. Best case scenario, this thing can go to 3-4, 3-5. So how's that work? How's that work out? So Dramathar Reaper, 2-drop, 3-2. Consume a creature. When a creature leaves your discard pile, Dramathar Reaper gains +0/+1, and you gain 1 health. So I have been playing her in non-consume decks. And the whole point was, well, I was playing other 3-2s. Bruma Profiteers at 3-2. It's for 2-drop. I was playing things like Reflective Automaton. That's a 2-3 for 2-drop. And those cards feel good. They feel good, okay? Yeah, actually putting a 2-drop for 2-3, it contests a Wardcrafter fine. So when this card is in its worst case scenario, you play it on curve, you don't consume anything, so it doesn't get any buff, and is a 3-2. It's playable on that worst case scenario where none of the summon effects even come into play. Now, let's say 1 body is in the grave. So as long as 1 creature has died before Dramathar Reaper is, you're going to be above curve value by being a 3-3. So Dramathar Reaper, there's 1 body in the grave, you consume it. Now she's a 3-3, and that's better stats than 2-3 sort of Reflective Automaton. It's better than your 3-2 Bruma Profiteer who dies without profiteering, which happens all the time. There's many times you play Bruma Profiteer, you don't gain any health because you played it on curve and it just trades immediately into something. So maybe even gain you 1 health. So Dramathar Reaper has that same use case because it does gain you 1 health when you do the consume. And it has the ability to actually consume more cards and to actually get more buffs. Let's say Dramathar Reaper is played as a 3-3 because you consume a card. You gain a health. You played another Dramathar Reaper, assuming there's another body. The previous Dramathar Reaper would go from 3-3 to 3-4, and now you'll gain 2 health. Because you gain 1 health from the Dramathar Reaper number 1, and 1 health from Dramathar Reaper number 2. This is also related to things like Journey and Necromancer. So if Necromancer reses a creature, that counts as a creature leaving your discard pile. So your existing Dromathar Reapers would actually go to 3-2, from 3-2 to 3-3, or if that situation already happened, you'd get a 3-4 going to 3-5. So then these guys can sneakily buff you up. They can also sneakily heal you, because Journey and Necromancer would also then heal you for 2 if you had 2 of these cards on the board, for example. Now, the super crazy interesting corner edge case that happens with Dromathar Reaper sometimes is if you run Journey to Sovereign. So Journey to Sovereign says, I'll pull it up since it's relevant enough. Journey to Sovereign says shuffle all creatures from your discard pile into your grave and give them +5/+5. So if you use that card with Dromathar Reaper, something cool happens. So it says when a creature leaves your discard pile. So this means when you resurrect something with a Soul Tear or Necromancer, or when you consume something, or when you shuffle cards from your discard pile back into your deck. And it says Dromathar Reaper gains +0/+1, gain 1 health. It says a creature. So if you use Journey to Sovereign with 20 creatures in your grave, it counts it every single time. So that means one creature gets shuffled in, you gain 1 life, and you get +0/+1. Shuffle in a second creature, +0/+2, gain 2 health. Oh, you shuffled 20 creatures, +0/+20, and you gain 20 health. I think that's crazy. Like, you see this 2-drop suddenly become a 3/20, and then the person just gained 20 life. It's happened against me. That's the only way I know that how that works. I do not have Journey to Sovereign, so I can't do it for you guys, but it's nice to know that could happen. So, can I think of anything else? And that's interesting, because this all makes Dromathar Reaper really good without even really making good use of the Consume package. But if you ran a Consume Sorcerer, Consume Warrior deck, this card's probably mandatory to run, because this card's flat out good enough. It's good enough without actually consuming cards like Imbued Argonian. But when you consume Imbued Argonian, what does this become? This becomes a 3/3 and then a 4/4 with guard. 2-drop 4/4 with guard when it consumes an Imbued Argonian. And then if you're playing even more consume cards, you could trick the trades, because assuming you consume another card, let's say you used Ruin Shambler, consume 3 cards. Let's pretend you're only running creatures. You discard the top 3 creatures of your deck, consume 3 cards. So Dromathar Reaper, when she was played, consumed Imbued Argonian. She's 4/4. She has guard. She gained you 2 health. No, 1 health. She gained you 1 health. When you play her with Mr. Ruin Shambler, she will get to become a 4/4+3, 4/7, becomes a 4/7, gain you 3 health. You know, you're just your average 4/7 2-drop. I think because we have 3 of her, we will try this out, because we haven't had a chance to try it out, but it's very clear that if you got her to be played with a Bone Shambler, very reasonable, because she's already a hardy body already. She's already very tough as a 3/3. They can put like a Cunning Ally or something right in front of her, right? On curve. Let's say you have Ring and you Ruin Shambler. All of a sudden she gets super jacked or something. And she just trades right in and it's like, easy. I'm a 4/7. I can eat your Cunning Ally and you can't even fireball me. Expunge. Action. Heal a creature and give it immune to shackle this turn. Draw a card. This card is played, I believe, in the Bone Armor deck because these high toughness creatures, let's say you have a Portcullis, it's a 0/9. They are playing things like Bollywog, Tidewalker, because Bollywog is the 4-drop 2/6 guard with a 0-cost heal. You use those to restore your high toughness creatures to set up lethal. So you could have like a Portcullis that's 0/9, it's getting hit repeatedly, now it's 0/3, heal it up. Expunge does the same thing, but it lets you draw a little deeper into your pool. I've seen some people running this card simply as a card draw card. At that point, it's a little expensive for it to be simply a card draw card. Healing hasn't been the most relevant thing, but so it's a little bit it's a little niche because I think I've seen people play this card just for card draw to actually heal their opponent's card before. So maybe in a deck that's really desperate for card draw, but it's a little expensive for what it does. It does a lot. It does 3 things. One thing which we're really interested in, the drawing a card, and the other 2 are, they can be very clutch. Like healing a creature and giving immune to shackle could win the game if you're talking about a heartbeat creature, but if you're proactively, let's say they're not shackling it and you're just trying to get the card draw, what if you're using it on a creature that's got like very low toughness because it's a 2-drop, so you're trying to play it as fast as possible. So you can just cycle through your deck. Maybe healing a creature at that stage is not that relevant. So outside of the combo deck, that's the only real use case I could see it for, but maybe Ring of Namira, I don't know. I don't know if Ring of Namira would actually trigger with that. I think Ring of Namira is when you gain life. Ring of Namira. Ring. Oh, when you gain, not a creature heals. So no, not. We got some ways to go, boys. 2-drop Seeker of the Black Arts. 2/3 pilfer, discard the top 3 cards of your deck. This is, I think this is mainly for the consume deck to get, this is a kind of fast track your way to get Ill-Fated Scholar and other consume cards quickly into the grave so that you can get other. It also works well with the this card as well. Rune Shambler reads, discard the top 3 cards of your deck, whereas Rune Shambler says, consume all creatures that entered your discard pile this turn. So not only would you consume the 3 cards that this one activated on summon, you'd actually activate the 3 cards you discarded. So if you would get +6/+6 on your Rune Shambler if Seeker of the Black Arts was able to pilfer. Serviceable body. 2-drop for 2/3 is pretty. It's good enough. The one person I actually saw run this card also ran the. There's a card from Alliance War that says get +4/+4 for every copy in the grave. Spiny Hajmoda, +4/+4 for each Spiny Hajmoda in your discard pile. So this card pairs quite nicely with that because this card wants the other brethren to be in the graveyard. So that is another use case of the Seeker of the Black Arts. It's good that it has 3 toughness and not 3 attack for a couple reasons. 2 attacks would not break a rune. 3 toughness makes it survive Firebolts and Wardcrafter. But these are very important because you're trying to get multiple pilfers, and when you're pilfering with this kind of deck and you're trying to combo off, you're not really trying to kill them off of Seeker of the Black Arts. You're just trying to set up a larger creature. It's kind of like a combo piece. So not cracking a prophecy could be very important, and being able to survive to attack twice is more important than dealing 3 damage and dying once, right? Attack. Something like that. Nibonese Mercenary. This card might actually might be relevant in like Telvanni and stuff like this. Scout, maybe. I have not really explored it in that use case for decks that are basically just trying to thin. Maybe a Journey to Sovngarde deck. We talked about how Dromathar Reaper benefits from Journey to Sovngarde. It's worth noting that this card is a 2-drop card. They both are 2-drops. They could be both played in the same conscription deck. And the deck that I saw that ran Journey to Sovngarde was a conscription deck, and it was a scout deck. So it was hyper thinning. The only real danger is you can't really pilfer with your Journey to Sovngardes. Not in your hand. Let's put it that way. If you discarded your Journey to Sovngarde, you might have lost your win condition. So it's a little risky. Nibonese Mercenary. Summon, consume a creature to gain +0/+2. So it's 3-drop, 3/5. Sounds like a Doomfang ally that hit a purple creature. And for that very reason, I think it sucks. But it could consume a creature like the Argonian, imbued Argonian, and all of a sudden it's way better than the Doomfang because it's like 4/5 with 4/6 with card. So it could be a 4/6 if it ate the imbued Argonian, or if it ate the Crocodile, it's a 3/5 draw you a card for 3, which makes it a Doomfang ally plus drawing a card. Crazy good. I mean, people are already willing to draw a card using Expunge and heal your opponent for 2. So getting a draw off eating a Crocodile that you discarded with the Seeker of the Black Arts. See, there's like some kind. You have the Crocodile. You have the Crocodile in the deck. RNG says it's at the top of your deck. You use Seeker of the Black Arts. He pilfers. He discards the Crocodile. And Nibonese Mercenary discards it, and you draw a card. Or, even better, you have Ill-Fated Scholar on the top of your deck. Thank you, RNG. Seeker of the Black Arts pilfers. He discards the Ill-Fated Scholar. Next turn, Nibonese Mercenary. Consume the Ill-Fated Scholar. You get a 3/5, and you generate a 3/2 body. This is the plays when they start to make sense, start to combo off, right? And that can be a lot of pressure. Then you curve into our friend Ruin Shambler, turn 4. Seeker of the Black Arts hits in, he gets it again, because guess what? Nibonese Mercenary, maybe he's that 3-drop, maybe he's that 4/5 guard protecting the Seeker of the Black Arts. You use Ruin Shambler. He's now a 6/6 because you discarded 3 cards from this card, and then you discarded 3 cards from this card. And then what the heck? He's a 6/6 vanilla, right? What if he consumes 2 Ill-Fated Scholars? You can get 2 3/2s, and he eats a Crocodile. You draw a card, right? So there are these RNG-based chain reactions that could get out of control. Like, if you just played this card, if you somehow managed to play this card, and somehow managed to hit Ill-Fated Scholars, Crocodiles, you're going to refill your hand, and you're just going to get this jacked thing. It's going to get 6/6, and it's going to generate those 3/2 tokens, or it can be a 7/7 with guard if it ate the imbued Argonian. I think one of the things that people are not, what's stopping people from, one reason why we're not seeing people go ham on this is because not too many people have 3 Dromathar Reapers, and I don't think that many people have, what's the other card? 3 Ill-Fated Scholars. I don't think like this is a card that screams 3 of or 0. You don't put you either have 3 of these in your deck in your collection or you have 0. And for your normal player and even your hardcore player, do you really want to craft this card that might be a potato? So that's one reason why you're not seeing it. It's not necessarily that it's bad. It's clearly possible to get some crazy chain reactions going. But it is a little bit on the expensive, high risk in terms of a deck. Like, and it also is maybe might even be on the more advanced side of piloting because it's not. Is it straightforward? Maybe it's not straightforward. Having not played it myself, I can't completely commentate, but it's definitely, if I'm just reading the cards, Consume's not a very straightforward thing to begin with. You need to know, you're doing things thinking about other cards. You're not just playing a card and being like, what do I do with this card? You're playing this card thinking, how does this combo off with other cards? And being a very creature-heavy deck, simply because of things like Ruin Shambler, your deck building is constrained and much more Spartan. Like, you have to basically, if you're doing Consume, you're like on that package. Like, even if you're running Sorcerer, you might not even run a Sorcerer's Negation simply because it might brick the Ruin Shambler. Like, it's that hardcore. And those crafts, especially the Ill-Fated Scholar, is so niche, it's absolutely trash in any deck other than Consume. So since it's trash other than Consume, it's very high risk for people to craft because it's not versatile like Undying Clan Sorcerer, which can basically be in a Tribunal deck, Veteran deck, Purple deck, Scout deck, Control deck, Aggro deck, that kind of thing. That's actually got me really excited just reading how these cards can combo off. Servant of Ja Kajay. 2/2, wax, Wayne, silence creature. So I've been crying about how Corner Club Gambler can't be answered in Scout. Well, this card could maybe answer Corner Club Gambler. Like an on-curve Corner Club Gambler almost spells defeat for a Scout player, in my experience. Because you can't actually do anything to it. You can't... I mean, there is a world where you use the... I think it's a... I don't know if that's even enough magic. You use Finish Off. Basically, you use the -1/-1 and then Finish Off. Maybe, but that's like a 2-for-1, and this feels bad. But Servant for Jaka J maybe might be able to do that. I'm not sure how the turns work out. So let's say it's turn 2, they play Corner Club Gambler, they're on the ring. So it's our turn 3. So you have wax. Sorry, buddy, can't silence. So it's turn, you're on the ring. They play it on turn 3, meaning it's your turn 3. Wait. They're on the ring and they played it on turn 2. That means it's your turn 3. Your turn 3, this thing waxes. You can't silence. You have... They are going first, next, and they play Corner Club on turn 3. It's your turn 3. Okay, the Wayne's on the wrong turn. So the only time that you could silence it is if they played the Corner Club off curve. It basically wasn't an opening hand card. So, sucks. Still can't. It sucks that this card can't really answer it, because that would be the main, like, as a Scout player, that's what I would actually be seriously interested in thinking about. It's like, hey, can this card actually silence card? The fact that it has silence, its kind of stats are kind of lackluster. Thinking about, could you run this in a self-silence package? I had some success with the self-silence package. Things like Imprisoned Deathlord, Hulking Mummy. Very big creatures, 4/4, self-shackling creatures. Silencing self-shackling creatures could be cool, but being a 3-cost 2/2 and then it switches back and forth could be a good thing, because sometimes you just need a young mammoth 4/4 body, because those self-silencing decks are very aggressive. On curve, it's a young mammoth, but worse. right? With no breakthrough. And then the 4-cost Knight of Shackle Everything is slightly better. I think those decks have too many 3-drops because many of the self-silence cards are competing with a similar spot, so I don't think this card would fit in there. That's my initial thinking. Now, in a deck that ran Rebellion General that triggered this multiple times, could be a thing. But the two main Wax Wayne cards we see now are this Moon Touch. You can actually quickly see. I think there's only those. Rebellion General with this card and this card is just... It's cute. It's not scary enough. Considering how with Willpower and Monk, the Wax Wayne package with Rebellion General and then draw 2 cards, destroy a creature is game winning. Like, this is game winning itself. You draw 2 cards twice in a row, killed creature, oh, game's over. You silence a creature again, you get buffed again, you get guard again. Not enough. So I think the consume package I'm seeing out of the purple is far stronger than the Wax and Wayne, because I can't see these cards as crazy amazing. I would rather run an Ondai Clan Sorcerer than Servant of Jakajay. Being a 3-drop, it needs to be compared with cards like Ondai Clan Sorcerer. And Ondai Clan Sorcerer is just so strong. I'm more than comfortable with taking down the stats from 4-4 to 4-3, just for the upside of maybe getting a Blood Magic spell, because Blood Magic spells are so powerful. So I couldn't say that there's a world where I'd rather put this card in. Even in the self-silence package. It's worth noting that for these cards that are Wax and Wayne, you're actually overpaying them. They're overpriced and they're actually understated, in my opinion. Like, they're barely okay unless you can trigger the Wax and Wayne together, or you can trigger them again. So triggering them together requires the Moon Gate, and then triggering them twice requires Rebellion General, which requires green. So one is green, triggering them twice. Giving a creature in your hand +2/+2. Garden Wards. The Garden Ward is really what you want here. So I'm thinking here is you basically want the 2/2 on this, and you use the silence only in times of desperate need. So you're hoping for the 2/2, so this is much for the more aggressive deck. Otherwise, if you really wanted silence, you need a more reliable way to silence. Moontouch Guardian is kind of the opposite. So this one, they both want Wax. They both want to be played on Wax, which on curve, this card you want Wayne. So on curve, it gets Waned. On curve, it gets Waxed. So at least on curve, they actually get the effect you really want. Giving a creature in your hand +2/+2 is very dangerous. It's so dangerous for a couple reasons. Unless it's a charging creature, that +2/+2 stats may never ever become relevant. So, like let's say you put it on a creature and you never played that creature. Well, that's a problem. That means it never impacted the game. Guard and Ward, on the other hand, Ward is a crazy keyword. It's one of the best keywords, right? Ward and Drain might be. Ward, Drain, and Charge might be the best 3 keywords. Lethal is pretty good too, I guess. But Ward is definitely up there. It is a little, as I said, it's expensive. So if you just played this Moontouch Guardian I complained about the artwork for this for the longest time too. Before. The Wayne on this card makes it worse than a Doomfang ally, because a Doomfang ally in a Battle Mage or blue base deck is a 3-drop for 3/3 ward most of the time, more than half the time. And that is crazy strong. It's very strong, considering how Daggerfall Mage is a 3-drop for 2/2 ward with a tome. In an aggressive matchup, that extra point of damage, 3 attack is 50% more damage than 2 attack, which is a big deal. So playing this as a 4 for guard and ward, you're basically paying extra magicka for the guard. The Doomfang ally is the same otherwise. And because Scout, Wax, and Wayne doesn't seem to be strong enough to play, you're never going to be able to trigger them both. So you're never going to be able to trigger them again. You might run the other package to trigger them both, but then the giving a creature in your hand +2/+2, what's the best creature to give +2/+2? Immediately, the first thing that came to my mind is Mulanimir. Because Mulanimir has shown its ability to actually kill you when it comes down with Berserker of the Pale. So it is a bit of a stretch to use Moontouch Guardian to buff a 9-drop and then require Berserker of the Pale to come down before the 9-drop comes down, and then play the 9-drop, and then hope that 2 more damage was relevant, because Mulanimir could kill someone without +2/+2. So it's a bit of a stretch, but it's a creature like Mulanimir or Tazcat that would most benefit from +2/+2. Somebody that immediately can use it for something. Otherwise, let's say you gave it to a guard. If you gave +2/+2 to a guard that got Earthbone Spinnered, and your game plan revolved around that guard being your last line of defense, game's over. Right? And it basically just negated your Moontouch Guardian, so you played 4 magicka for 3/3. When 4 magicka in purple colors gives you a Bleak Coast Troll for 5/5. With the upside of being able to get stronger with each slay. Okay, we're at. So I have all the purple cards. Oh, I have all of them. Nice. So Ruined Shambler, we've been talking about this card for a while now, because it's hard to discuss Consume without this card. We'll read it again. Mummy. I think, does Mummy count as a skeleton? Maybe not. I don't think that counts as a skeleton. That might be on purpose. But it does count as undead. So back in the day when Dawnbreaker could immediately... Okay, that was another thing. One reason why we probably didn't see undead as an undead skeleton-based deck in the previous meta was because Dawnbreaker used to instantly kill things. Like, even a Barrowstalker... From my experience, when Dawnbreaker instantly kills a Barrowstalker and gives +4/+4, that thing is game-winning. So if you were killing someone's Blood Magic Lord... Dude, remember that was the thing. You just put a 4-drop and I killed your 9-drop. I killed your Night Talon Lord. Kabam! Right? So that would have really made Skeleton... And Dawnbreaker was ran in every single Willpower deck. Control deck? Cool. Aggro deck? Cool. Didn't matter. Dawnbreaker was everywhere, and Dawnbreaker was so scary. I mean, it's like auto keep. I think people kept it... I don't know if people kept it in opening hands that aggressively, but it's certainly a card that people were playing, and it could shut down people when they killed a 2-drop. So if it killed a 4-drop Mummy, like if that old Dawnbreaker was alive, Ruined Shambler would seriously be ruined. But since Dawnbreaker's been nerfed, maybe that's giving the undead a little bit more love, right? They complained that, look, Dawnbreaker's too strong. We're too afraid of that weapon. So 1/1, 4-drop. Summon, discard the top 3 cards of your deck, then consume all creatures that entered your discard pile this turn. Ruined Shambler gains +1/+1 for each creature consumed. That's a lot of text. So This card immediately synergizes, as we just said, with this card, because this card discards cards when it pilfers. So if this card discards 3 cards, and then this card discards 3 cards, and all 6 cards discarded were creatures, this would get +6/+6. It would be a 7/7. Now, it would then consume those cards. So if those cards had additional effects, such as Imbued Argonian, +1/+1 if it got consumed, our 7/7 friend would then become an 8/8. And then if we had Ill-Fated Scholar up in the mix, if one of the top 6 cards was an Ill-Fated Scholar, you're going to get her consumability, a 3/2. So these cards must be in the same deck. If this card's in a deck, that card has to be in the deck. But this card could also be played in other decks that don't run this, so that's worth noting. But the fact that this is a 4-drop that could be an 8/8 or a 7/7 with other things for every, I'm not fully yet aware of everything that you can consume, makes this card, I think it actually makes this card very playable. It also makes it very scary. If it would actually make this deck probably shine in the aggro matchup more than the control, because the problem with this in a control deck is it just, against a control deck, it is a big target to shoot down. But it is possible, if you made it at 8/8, that the removal is damage based. Channeled Storm, Lightning Bolts, Ice Storms. And if it did generate 3/2 tokens, and if it did, for example, pick up a ward, or if it did, it becomes a huge deal. It's also worth noting that Ruin Shambler reads, consume all creatures that entered your discard pile this turn. So, let's pretend you have our friend Crocodile on the board. You could actually trade the Crocodile in first, pilfer with Seeker of the Black Arts, then play Ruin Shambler. Ruin Shambler will consume the Crocodile. It will consume the discarded cards from Seeker of the Black Arts. And then it would consume the other top 3 cards. Very hungry mummy. It's a Khajiit. That's actually a Khajiit. Dang, I didn't know it was a Khajiit, but it is. Do you see the tail here? Card that I'm interested in playing around with and figuring out how to make that work. Bone Weaver. Guard. Summon, consume a creature. Draw a creature with the same name from your discard pile. The first time I played Bone Weaver, I potatoed. So I thought, ooh, I have a card in my grave. If I just play this card, I get to draw it. Yay! No. Gotta read carefully. Consume a creature. If you have another copy of this card that you consumed, draw it. So you do not draw the creature you eat. You draw a copy of that creature, or you draw a creature with the same name that's already in your discard pile. So basically, let's say you have Bone Weaver, and you have Bondari Opportunist in the grave. If there's only one Bondari Opportunist, he eats the Bondari Opportunist, nothing happens. If you have 2 Bondari Opportunists in the grave, he eats one Bondari, and then you take the other one out of the grave, and you now have that one. This is kind of what makes Bone Weaver kind of... It's kind of hard to set up. Because you need 2 copies of the exact card in your grave. Which isn't that easy to do. It's a 5 cost. So let's say worst case scenario, you do exactly what I did. Because it has to consume a creature. So assuming it consumes a creature and you don't have another copy, nothing, you don't draw anything. So there is the upside of saying, okay, well, 1, you consume a creature that has no consume me effects. then nothing happens. But maybe you consumed your friend Imbued Argonian. Well, then you become a 6/6 with guard for 5/6. For 5 magic, a 6/6 with guard. Doable. Not ideal. It would have been nicer if you had 2 Imbued Argonians, so you'd draw the second one. Now, worst case scenario is you consume something with nothing and you're just 5/5, 5/5, 5 for 5/5 with guard. It's playable, but pretty lackluster, because Alfiq in the meta, 7/5. You have to recognize that basically the top tier decks and the people at the top are consistently pulling Alfiq with the 7/5 ward on turn 6. So 5/5 with guard is awfully bad when they just put a 7/6 with guard. Sorry, 7/6 with ward. 7/5 with ward, right? So while his little whip sword is cool and his armor is also very nice, I can only think of one use case and only one card that you actually want to use this with. That's Elusive Schemer. It's still very hard though to set up, because Elusive Schemer, it says when you play this, when it dies, shuffle another copy in your grave. A 0-cost copy. If you have enough Elusive Schemers in your deck, so this is the thing, Elusive Schemer could possibly loop with Bone Weaver. Because Elusive Schemer, when it dies, it creates another one. If you had 2, let's say you had the first Elusive Schemers in the grave, then you somehow get the second Elusive. You need the 2 Elusive Schemers to start looping this. The first one dies, it shuffles a 0-cost in your grave. You draw a 0-cost Elusive Schemer. You play it, and it dies. You now have 2 in your grave. And then it shuffles another 0-cost creature in your grave. Now you can use Bone Weaver to eat one of the Elusive Schemers, and it'll draw another Elusive Schemer. And then you can play the Elusive Schemer. That one dies. So you'll always have 2 in the grave. Once there are 2 Elusive Schemers in the grave, there will always be 2 in the grave at a time, which basically means the Bone Weaver will eat one, draw another one, play another one, die, draw, eat one, die, draw, eat one, and continually cycling Elusive Schemers. That's the only thing that I can actually think. And I think since that kind of works like that, Bone Weaver then probably synergizes with the Bandari Opportunist, because Bandari Opportunist is also cheaper cost card, draws you cards, and once you have 2 in the grave, you can consume it and you'll pull the other one. So there is something about the Bandari Opportunist and Elusive Schemers, these cards that draw you cards and generate another copy of itself. Could be cycled in Bone Weaver, but that deck would need another piece to really work, right? Because Bone Weaver only can run 3 copies of it, and if you actually ran 3 copies of it, aren't you breaking yourself like crazy? Like, I think you'd be breaking yourself in the Alfiq meta, because like we said, they put the turn 6. So you can't really rely on Bone Weaver as a guard, and then that looping thing strategy sounds like a shenanigan that, unless there's an OCK involved, and I'm not sure what they would use to kill you. I'm not sure how they would do it. He's uprisingable, so it's possible to uprise him because he has a summon ability. So there might be some Telvanni, Bone Weaver, Elusive Schemer. All those cards can be played out in the same deck. Elusive Schemer, Bandari Opportunist, Bone Weaver, Uprising. I don't know what they would do, but there is some. At least all 3 cards are playable within that thing. Fallen Dragon. So Fallen Dragon 5/10, summon. Fallen Dragon deals 5 damage to itself. Okay, 5/5 for 5. Reasonable. It's reasonable enough. Funny, because I just said this is slow and not reasonable and has guard. I say it's reasonable enough. And let me give the context. This card is played in the same deck that runs Bone Armor, and I think the Bone Armor deck also runs Expunge. So we were talking about the combo deck that consumes a creature and gain its health. Well, one of the creatures they like to consume isn't just portcullis, it's Fallen Dragon. So the whole idea is, let's say you throw away Fallen Dragon with Cornucopia Gambler, you then use Bone Armor, the creature then would get 10 health. If it gets 10 health, like a camel becomes 14 health, you use Ring of Illusory Imaginary Might, it becomes a 116, and then it swaps to 16/16 camel. And with Expunge, if you're running Expunge in the deck, you could heal your said Fallen Dragon from 5/5 to 5/10. So that's why I'm saying it's reasonable based off the fact that I know there are some combo potentials with Fallen Dragon. Versus this one's less reasonable because the combo isn't clear and it's very late game. Like looping Bandari, unless you can loop them infinitely quickly on a single turn and kill them, like maybe there is a world where there's something like market strategy based, like kind of like the old Empire. I'm not sure, but Fallen Dragon's combo can OTK you at least. Like I know that by having this in your deck, played as a 5/5, it's good enough in a deck that can ignore the Alfiq. So instead of saying, I'm a late game deck that I'm going to throw Bone Weavers in front of Alfiq and somehow hold off to my elusive schemer is already known to be slow, right? So if you play Bone Weaver in an elusive schemer deck against Alfiq's, you're kind of setting yourself up to die because you don't have an OTK to get you out of there. But Fallen Dragon, on the other hand, is also a 5-drop for 5/5, and instead of trying to contest people, by not having guard, it's even better because you could hide it in Shadow Lane, and you can make this the OTK card. Because we were talking how Merchant's Camel itself is dangerous in that deck. Like, you could put Merchant's Camel in the Shadow Lane. Having 1/4 toughness is sufficient if Portcullis is in the grave. If Fallen Dragon was healed somehow, maybe the Bullywog, you don't need Expunge to heal it. Expunge is 2 cost, so that makes things slower. But if you have Bullywog Tidewalker, you have a 0 cost heal at your disposal. So this 5/5 that is hiding in the Shadow Lane can represent lethal by healing it with Bullywog and then swapping it. You can even swap it, right? Let's say you just use Ring of Illusory Imaginary Might on this with a Bullywog. You're making a 12/12, and if you have double strike, you could kill them if you had poked 8 damage in already. 12 damage coming. Sorry, you only need 6 damage. If you had poked them 6 damage with Thieves Guild Recruits and Merchant's Camels, Fallen Dragon getting the switcheroo on its attack and defense, doesn't even need Bone Armor. So like this dragon's good in the grave because it sets up Bone Armor plays, but with the Bullywog Tidewalker, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'll show you. It's Isle of Madness. This card right here. This card says 2/6/4, 4-drop, 2/6 with guard. So it's worse than a Hive Defender by 1 attack. So it's actually playable. This card is the card you want, the 0 cost heal a creature. Because if you're running that with our subject under review, our Fallen Dragon, you could heal this to the 5/10 after making a trade. Like, it could trade into something, survive. 5/5 is enough to trade and survive into many things. Boom, heal. Right? So interesting card. I like the idea behind this design. It's kind of funny. Based off the combo I described, this dragon. Imagine if you were a dragon. You know how some animals, like possums, play dead? What if this dragon was pretending, like, you know how you bait your food? This dragon's so intelligent. He's a lazy, intelligent, smart dragon. He can actually fly, but he pretends to crash land in the forest and pretend he's like, makes noises, pretends he's out of energy. You might lure some stupid humans to it because, like, oh, if we kill this dragon, we can sell its scales and armor for so much money. Easy. And then he's like totally healthy and just like debated and just like roasts you. That'd be cool. Usually you don't see a dragon have the cunning to apply these kind of tactics. in fantasy world genres. Cool. We're on the 2 last cards, and then we'll do our set review of other cards on another day. Let's see how we're doing so far. Wow, this set review has been 2 hours on Endurance and Multicolored alone. I'm telling you, Alliance War was 3 hours on Endurance, for example. Be right back so we can get our sip.
If the stars were made to worship so alive, if the mountains bow in reverence so alive, if the oceans roar your greatness so alive, for if everything exists to lift you high, so alive. If the wind goes where you send it, so alive. If the rocks cry out in silence, so alive. If the sum of all our prices still falls shy.
I think I drank a whole water bottle getting through the set. That's why I was like, why is there not a water bottle in front of me? Because didn't I just get water? Okay, one last comment on the Fallen Dragon. And it's interesting because there's a comparison between these 2 5-drops, right? Is Fallen Dragon not having guard is better than Boneweaver having guard, because this card cannot kill you. This card can kill somebody. So this card is trying to not have guard, it's just trying to hide in the Shadow Light. And again, in the Alfiq meta, this as a guard trying to protect you is not enough. In the Alfiq meta, running a combo deck like this that can kill you in 1 turn encourages and benefits from Alfiq's hitting you in the face. As long as you're not dead, they're helping you get more and more resources and cards to combo off, is why. So there's a difference there. Zumog Thum. On Reddit, there was a recent discussion post on Zumog. Basically, it was like discuss what you think about this card, and I posted what I thought about it. First, I'm gonna say Gumshoe is the one who showed me that this card's pretty crazy. This card's really good. I gave this card 5 out of 5, and I would give it 10 out of 10. I would give it 100 out of 100. I think this card's actually that good. It's actually really nice of Spark to Pants Studios to have this as one of the 500 gold card. Like if you were on the edge of whether you should buy the 500 starter pack with Zumog Thum and you like purple cards, this steal. Like, you do not need to craft this guy with soul gems. Go to the special offers area and just purchase it with 500 gold. Easy. So why am I willing to give it such a high rating? Well, let's think about it. Zumog Thum is like an Odurnian Necromancer. It's a 6-drop. Odurnian Necromancer's stats, though, are way worse. There's like 3/3, okay? Well, yet why is Odurnian Necromancer so valuable? Odurnian Necromancer is actually a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100 card off the bat. Like, if you don't think that's true, it means you do not understand how good Odurnian Necromancer is. Like, the card's crazy. I mean, put it this way, with a 5th Legion Trainer or a Divine Fervor, Odurnian Necromancer can bring back Alfiq Conjurer. Because Odurnian Necromancer's attack is 3/3 base, right? Says it can res anything less attack. So it can res 2 attack and 1 attack. Default. With 5th Legion Trainer, you buff the Odurnian Necromancer. Odurnian Necromancer is now a 4 attack creature. Who's a 3 attack creature? Alfiq Conjurer is a 3 attack creature. These is just explaining why Odurnian Necromancer is obviously to me a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100. If you think it's not that good, you need to revisit the card. For a 6-drop, it is worth noting that the Alfiq Conjure meta kind of also, like Alfiq Conjure itself is also, to me, a 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5, 100 out of 100. Actually, even might even more than that. So that's kind of my baseline, is if you look at Alfiq, because Alfiq Conjure is probably going to get nerfed, and Ordurian Necromancer is probably not going to get nerfed. So if you look at what we were looking at the 6-drop slot, Alfiq Conjure is setting the bar pretty high, higher than Ordurian Necromancer. But Ordurian Necromancers can bring back Alfiq Conjurers. And think of what kind of turn 6 is that, because in theory you could play, what is that? That's white, blue, purple. That's Tribunal colors. If you had a 5th Legion trainer on the board, on turn 5 you had the ring, you could use Alfiq Conjure. Sorry, you could play Alfiq Conjure, summon the first Flame Atronach. But it's even worse if you set it up with if you set it up, right? You could set up the Alfiq Conjure. You get the Alfiq Conjure dead, but you've caused so many problems they can't deal with the 5th Legion trainer. On turn 6, Ordurian Necromancer bring back the Alfiq Conjure and give you Storm Atronach. So I think Zumog Foom is somewhere between Ordurian Necromancer and Alfiq Conjurer. It's actually better than a Necromancer, but it's worse than a Conjurer. That's what I'd say. So there is a weird area where, and I think in other games they use the term S tier or God tier. I don't want to use God tier because that's kind of a little disrespectful to God. But I'll use S tier. So if we consider Alfiq Conjurer S tier, Necromancer and Ordurian Necromancer tier 1, and Zumog is somewhere in between there. Why? Because as a force, like, the thing is, he can get the same value out of it. From my experience, Zumog can get the same value as Ordurian Necromancer with better stats. Not even slightly better, but like way better. Like 4-6. Like Ordurian Necromancer even feels good when you res things like a Thieves Guild Recruit, or if you res a Merchant's Camel. Those are very common plays. But Zumog Foom, let's say you play Merchant's Camels and Thieves Guild Recruits. It's very easy to set up the exact same play. So just say, let's say you have Zumog Foom in hand and you have a Merchant's Camel. Instead of putting Merchant's Camel in a place where it'll die immediately, you could put it in a place where it will die when Zumog Foom gets played, so you can immediately bring back Merchant's Camel. And I consider this to be the sort of lower end. Hello. You get, if you get Alfiq Conjurer as a 1/1 and then you summon another thing, you will be able to consume it. Wait, let me read summon. Yeah, you will get the summon. You will get it. And that's actually what I'm trying to get at is, yeah, Zumog. So on the worst case scenario, Zumog Foom can get you a Merchant's Camel and a Thieves Guild. Okay, I'll be realistic. That's kind of like the most common case. It's possible that you play Zumog Foom. Worst case scenario is you select a creature and you don't activate it the same turn you summon him. But the middling case, which is very doable, is you play him on a creature, such as in a control deck, you can play it on a Thieves Guild Recruit or a Ungolum or a Merchant's Camel that you can set up to die. Like you can put it in the shadow lane under that in a shadow lane facing a stronger creature, so you can sacrifice it to get the immediate res. Or in a more aggressive deck, Zumog Foom can actually be. You could point it at a card that you have in field lane that's already ready to do a trade. Could be a Haunting Spirit, for example. Could be a Daggerfall Mage. Could be a Wardcrafter. All these common cards. These are all good targets, that's the thing is, like, let's say you got a Wardcrafter. Zumog Foom selects a Wardcrafter and you get a Ward. Well, then you just paid for a 6 Magicka 4/6 with Ward and a 1/1 body. pretty good. Could be even crazier if you use that ward immediately on another target and get a favorable trade. And that's kind of, these are all like, so you're going for the worst case scenario is you play it and you select and you don't, nothing happens. Middling case, you're selecting smaller guys, 2 drops, 3 drops, forcing trades, or you're getting these card draw cards, making you very similar to Odurnian Necromancer. Sure, you lose out on some stats, so if you get a Merchant's Camel back, you get a 1-1 instead of a 1-4. It's also worth noting when that 1-1 dies, it will be a 1-4 again if you res it. So if I Zumog Fume a Merchant's Camel, suicide the Merchant's Camel, it comes back as a 1-1. That Merchant's Camel 1-1 dies, I use the Odurnian Necromancer to bring back the camel, it comes back as a 1-4. And that's relevant when you do things like Odahving, right? So if you target Odahving and you kill an Odahving, you get Odahving as a 1-1. But when that 1-1 dies and you soul tear that Odahving, you get a 10-10. So on the upside, Zumog Fume can start doing things that Odurnian Necromancer cannot dream of. You can start targeting Alfiq Conjurer, right? So you can target Alfiq Conjurer, opponent's Alfiq Conjurer, and you yourself will get the 1-1 Alfiq Conjurer, and then you get the summon effect, which then triggers a 5-3 Flame Atronach, probably, for you. So what is that? 6 Magicka for 10 attack, 9, 10 toughness, and a guard. 10 attack, 10 toughness, and a guard. Then you have those, well, you need to be able to trigger it. Well, it's true. But is it really that hard to trigger Zumog Fume? In my experience, no, not really. You could target things like Ondai Clan Sorcerer. So like Ondai Clan Sorcerer could be in the field lane, and you had to play him early, and maybe you're not going to be able to activate a Blood Magic spell originally because he needs to trade in to be one of the 3 cards that die that turn. Well, you could target Zumog Fume, that Ondai Clan Sorcerer. He trades into Ondai Clan Sorcerer, gets the trade, you trade in something else or some other way, maybe use a curse to kill another target from a Murkwater Scourge he had played previously. Then Ondai Clan Sorcerer will come back and count, get you that Blood Magic spell. That's all that really matters. So you get that Blood Magic spell. And not only that, you're presenting a 1-1 Ondai Clan Sorcerer. They actually have to attack. Because if they don't attack you, it basically, it's pseudo life gain. Because let's say they had a very large creature there, Bleak Coast Troll. If they do not attack the 1-1, then you're going to get another Blood Magic spell. So they're actually probably going to attack the 1-1, even though they're an aggressive deck trying to go for your face. So that pseudo life gain of maybe 5 health, because instead of attacking you, they attack the 1-1. So choosing creatures it's very nice to choose other creatures that have summon abilities. Let's think Marok. Okay, we're in late game, we're versus Tribunal. They put Marok in the field lane. We're at 10 Magicka. We have a Territorial Viper and Zumog Fume. We can just put the Territorial Viper down on the field lane, Zumog Fume Marok, kill Marok. Now we have Marok. Marok can steal something big. It's turn 10, and you have Territorial Viper in hand and Zumog Fume. And they have 2 threats in the field lane. You play Territorial Viper, you play Zumog Fume, select the Territorial Viper, you run the Territorial Viper into 1 threat, the Territorial Viper kills it, it comes back as a 1-1, which basically means it comes back as itself because Territorial Viper's a 1-1 already. Still has charge, still has lethal, kills the second one. As a summon ability, since Zumog Fume has a summon ability, it's actually uprisable. So if you play Zumog Fume and summon to the creature, blah, 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 steal Marok, blah, 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 it's still late game, you could still use Zumog Foom again as an Uprising target along with other Uprising cards. Because if you're playing an Uprising base deck like I do, then you might actually be able to generate insane value off Zumog Foom. It's like now you're getting past his average value, because not only did you res something earlier, you're going to Uprising and you can select maybe like a Thieves Guild recruit again that you got the Uprising on, and then you sacrifice that up. So not only does the Uprising draw a card on the Thieves Guild recruit, but because Zumog Foom selects that Thieves Guild recruit, you sacrifice it, it spawns back again, so you draw a card. So you can draw 2 cards that way. Possible. And that's on the low end, because Thieves Guild recruit's like low. But if it's Odoving, like you have an Odoving or a Parthenax, you could choose these creatures, and if your opponent's not killing them, let's say they're not killing Parthenax, you can sack Parthenax, get it back as a 1/1. Generate more shouts. One target you need to be very careful of is you can't really choose a Journey Necromancer. Zumog Foom targeting a Journey Necromancer is a mistake, because a Journey Necromancer comes back as a 1/1, can't res anything. But you can steal things like Clivia Tharn, right? You can steal things. I'm trying to think of other interesting stuff that you can do with it. But I think that the plays you can make with Zumog Foom have they're just so vast. Like the options are so big. Like Journey Necromancer is fairly limited. It's just straightforward. How much power does your guy have, and does my deck have anything populated? Zumog Foom isn't just he's not looking at what's in your grave. He's looking at what's on the field, and he's looking at, it can be all the way at the very high end, and it can be all the way at the low end. And even on the low end, because his stats are so fat, 4/6, it's still good enough. Wilds Incarnate, for example, you could target it on a Wilds Incarnate and steal Wilds Incarnate. So, like, it's actually worth noting, I think the lore, because I did a little research on Zumog Foom because I thought he was cool, was Zumog Foom is like Mana Marco's apprentice? And Euraxia Tharn's like a lieutenant or something? There's something like that. So there is something Mana Marco-y about him. Definitely a fun card. Would highly recommend you pick him up with a 500 gold. If you could think of another interaction and let me know what it is, because I'm all about it. I really think the summon ability still triggers on the, like, I think it's no problem. There are a couple of times where similar interactions happen where some kind of summon ability happens on your turn and you still get to do it. Like, think about it, a prophecy Harpy, right? If they crack a rune, Harpy's summon ability is Shackle, but it's on your turn. It's on their turn, right? So I think it's the same thing, because Shackle, Harpy's summon can trigger on your opponent's turn, basically. So we are on our final card, Reanimate. Summon a creature from your discard pile. I got this card from a card pack, and I've successfully used it 0 times. But we can talk about it as a card. I think this card is cool. It's very slow for the current metagame. But when that Alfiq Conjurer nerf comes, I think Alfiq Conjurer is going to get nerfed. Okay, so like, I'm assuming Alfiq Conjurer is going to get nerfed. So it's like, when it does get nerfed, things will slow down a little bit. I think things will slow down a little bit. The problem with Alfiq Conjurer is it's the turn 6, and it presents literally 2 targets that can't get Ice Stormed if you activate it, right? Which is why you're kind of seeing people. It's the answer to Alfiq Conjurer is not Ice Storm, so people are not able to. So it's an interesting metagame where, so if Alfiq Conjure's the S tier, Ice Storm can't answer them if they have 3/4 and the 7/5 with Ward. It's like, doesn't even do anything to them. Then all those cards that are bad against Ice Storm but good against Alfiq have a place to shine. So you see people like Spellsword, Spellsword tokens go wide. They still suffer against Battle Mages because of Cradle Crush and Skavens, but I've noticed that there are these fast go wide, go under decks that are able to catch Battle Mage off guard, I think. And I think they're benefiting basically because Ice Storm's not seeing as much play. But when they nerf the Alfiq, Ice Storm, like for example, if it's a 3/4 suddenly becomes a 3/3 and the Magicka cost goes up to 7, now Ice Storm can be paired with another card, you know? And that's the meta. That means the Reanimate becomes more playable in a meta where Ice Storm is allowed to thrive again and Alfiq is allowed to calm down, because right now it's way too much. So until then, Reanimate's probably not going to see that much play because people die on turn 8, right? If you die on turn 8, a 9 Magicka cost card's not going to help you. So Reanimate's actually a Solitaire. You can view it as, compare it to Solitaire, because Solitaire is the most comparable card to it. So let's say Solitaire. I've been able to run Solitaire, and Solitaire is 3 Magicka, and our favorite targets are like Territorial Viper. So 3 Magicka, 4-drop, boom, Territorial Viper. It's kind of more expensive and unfavorable compared to Journey Necromancer, 6 Magicka, develop a 3/3, bring back Territorial Viper, smack. So that's that. So Territorial Solitaire is kind of like a desperation mode, but it also has the carryover of leveling up the next shout to +2/+2, which becomes relevant for Giant Bats and becomes relevant for Necromancers because Necromancers become 5/5s and they can start looping other Necromancers or Galens or Ondai Clan Sorcerers and all that kind of stuff. So Reanimate, if we subtract 3 costs from it, Reanimate is basically 3 Magicka is for Solitaire. 6 Magicka is for whatever you're playing, right? Because it says summon a creature from your discard pile, meaning you Solitaire them back, but it doesn't go to your hand, it goes immediately to the field. So 6 Magicka is what you're paying for whatever card it is. So if you use Reanimate on anything that costs less than 6 Magicka, you're doing worse than Solitaire. You might as well have Solitaire to back. So if I use Solitaire Territorial Viper, it's 7 Magicka, for example. If you use Reanimate, you're using 9 Magicka to get a Territorial Viper on the ground, which is overpaying by 2, and then you're not getting any carryover in the form of +2/+2 like Solitaire does. So Solitaire becomes relevant because that +2/+2 on the Giant Bat is game winning against aggro. It could be game winning against control when it gets to +5/+5. 7/7 bats are very good win conditions, even after they cast into time your Parthenax, Twilight, Piercing Twilight, your Tazcat, your Giant Bats, or your fallback plan, right? So that being said, Reanimate needs to be used on cards that cost more than 6 Magicka. I just thought of one more Zumog Foom use case that I really like to use, but 6 Magicka. And that's kind of the thing, right? Where if it's 6 Magicka, it's the same thing as having used Solitaire, but it doesn't carry over. So in theory, Solitaire is still better if you used Reanimate on a 6 Magicka cost card. And this is an awkward situation because Reanimate needs or benefits most when a card costs more than Reanimate is in the grave. Parthenax, Odahviing. But how do you get those cards in your grave without having played them and having them killed? So you need to find a way to either discard with Corner Club Gamblers or these Black Arts guy. You need to find a way to discard these cards. Merchant's Camel, and that's still RNG based, right? So using Merchant's Camel and getting Odahviing into the grave so you could reanimate it isn't very likely. But that's when Reanimate shines the most, is when you can play a 12 cost card off curve, before curve, ahead of curve. It's turn you ramped into reanimate and you Odiving them. Let's say you ramped twice, so it's turn 7, and then it's actually possible to get a turn 6 Odiving with reanimate. I think if you use a Tree Minder, you have the Ring of Magicka, and you use a Hiss Mage, so you're 3 Magicka ahead of curve. And if somewhere down that line you've used a Merchant's Camel and Odiving, you can get a turn 6 Odiving with reanimate. So that is called high rolling, because that needs you to find the Tree Minder, get the ring. Like, getting the ring's already high rolling. Getting the Tree Minder on curve, getting the Hiss Mage on curve, having reanimate in your hand by turn 6, and using Merchant's Camel to deposit your big fat 12 cost dragon. So you need a lot of ands to kind of make that happen, but it's worth noting that it could happen. In that case, reanimate would be a game-winning spell. So it's worth noting that, okay, that's your turn 6 play, is you reanimated Odiving when they had Alfiq. Under those like ramp conditions, it's a good card under that special conditions. So Odiving, Parthenax, those are the kind of cards you want to try to do that kind of move. If you're not able to do that, and that's another problem, is because these cards cost so much Magicka, could you really risk having more than 1 or 2 copies in your deck? Because if you're really on that game plan that I just mentioned, you need reanimate to be in your hand to even make it, because you can't Soul Tear back Odiving and play it, because that's 15 Magicka, right? So if you Soul Tear play Odiving, that's 15 at 3 to bring it to your hand, 12 to send it on the field. Reanimate cuts that Magicka cost down by 6, so it saves you 6 Magicka, so 9 to send it straight in, right? And trigger the summon, clear the board for Magicka, might win the game right there on turn 6. So it's kind of risky. This it's possible that you might have found the ramp. You might have even got the ring, but you might have even put Odiving in the grave. But if you only had 1 copy of Reanimate in the deck, what if you didn't draw it? Can't use it. So there is that potential. It only requires 1 part of that puzzle to make it not happen on turn 6. So it's a high-risk strategy, right? So Reanimate's other potential use case, and I don't know how Summon and Exalt work. If I'm not mistaken, if you actually used Reanimate on Exalted creature, like I'm going to butcher her name, Alamexliel, Vivek, or Sothasil, I don't think you can actually Exalt them. I think they come back as like bad cards. Vivek comes back as a 5/5, Sothasil comes back as a 4/4. So there is, unfortunately, Tribunal might not be able to do it on that. So you're looking at hopefully reanimating things like the big dragons. And in those cases, it's weird. It's interesting because let's say you ran the Soul Tear package, 3 Soul Tears, and you ran Reanimate. You could view Reanimate as a backup Soul Tear. But if you got into some of those late game plans where you're not really ramping, like if you're Tribunal and you're not really ramping heavy, you might it's not really saving you Magicka. It saves you very little. Sorry, it does save you Magicka if you do it on a big target, but does that saved Magicka make enough impact if you're already at 12 Magicka? Because, like, chances are, if you're playing Tribunal and you manage to play this card, it might save you a bit of Magicka, but you've already stabilized, and it kind of doubles as a second. It's your like backup Soul Tear, but from my experience, you'll be lucky to even play Soul Tear twice, even in control mirrors. Like, it's very common that you don't get to play Soul Tear twice. So this kind of hurts Reanimate. I think one idea on Reanimate came to me is that maybe Telvanni, Uprising Telvanni, like Please Don't Hack Me, it's been playing a very good Uprising Scout, Uprising Telvanni. Maybe Reanimate could be in the deck. I don't know how tight that deck is. So that deck does have a lot of cards that are... It's already a well-polished deck. So throwing in a card like Reanimate might be a little... It's a little bit... It's unnecessary. It's greedy because it can be a brick. It doesn't defend you at all in the early game, and it literally is only good if the Nixox combo is shot off. So in that case, I feel like maybe it's not very good in that deck because they already have enough good cards. And they need 60% of the deck to like defend themselves, and 40% of the deck is to like combo. So I have my last comment on Zumog Foom before we end the stream. Is that a combo? Reanimate, but what's Mausoleum? I'll search that up after I say Zumog Foom. Zumog Foom pairs gloriously with one of my favorite cards. A card that you should craft if you are on the edge of... If you're thinking about crafting this card, you should craft this card. If you can. Like, don't force it if you're not playing these kind of decks anyway. But Murkwater Scourge is good. It's so good. So good with Zumog. And maybe that's another reason why my expectations of Zumog, I'm coloring it as he's better than Ordurian Necromancer, he's worse than Alfiq. Is probably because Murkwater Scourge has a big factor. Is because, let's say I don't have any good targets to bring back. Murkwater Scourge is a crazy target to bring back. So on curve, they fit quite nicely too, because Murkwater Scourge is like 4, then Zumog's 6. So they're like close enough to be played in proximity. Murkwater Scourge, basically, you don't really care about his 3 attack. It's good, but what you really care is the curses. So like if you play Murkwater Scourge in the Shadow Lane to stalk another threat, you put him there, it generates a curse, and then you play Zumog Foom. Like the next, when you can play Zumog, target Murkwater Scourge. Murkwater Scourge goes in, trades, usually kills the target, but if you need to use one curse, you use one curse. 4 toughness is pretty easy to deal with. And if you really needed to deal 5 damage, you can use 2 curses, right? Then Murkwater Scourge dying would immediately respawn as 1/1, generating you a curse, and then his next death will generate another curse. And since I'm running Leaf Lurkers, even the 1/1 is relevant, because the 1/1 can be used to set up Leaf Lurker, right? So he himself could run into a big body, or he can be running into a ward or something like that. So Zumog Foom really likes this card in general. And if it doesn't feel bad at all to reanimate a 1/1 guy that generates 2 curses. So hopefully you guys enjoyed my review. I'm going to highlight it now. We will upload our gloriously along to